all-knowing and all-powerful, starting with the elderly wolf uncle. Chapter 13. The brigade received the order and rushed into the factory area with great horsepower. Meanwhile, the elderly Logan Howlett drove Chrysler and planned to flee the place with Professor Charles, but it was too late. The factory grounds are blocked by jeeps coming from all directions, and all roads are blocked by a convoy of the Akali Transgenic Institute. Fuck. Logan Howlett slammed the steering wheel angrily and cursed the car backwards. Professor Charles, who was sitting in the back seat, looked around, fell into the chaotic scene, and said softly, "Logan. I'm figuring it out." Uncle Wolf gasped, and his eyebrows revealed solemnity and simply responded, "Logan, we can't give up on that girl." Professor Charles chatted in his mouth, and he looked in the direction of the factory building from time to time. "Please stop talking." Logan was a little irritable. He was really not in the mood to pay attention to the others. He just wanted to get away from this place quickly. Inside the carriage of the escort car, Chen Tian and Caliban both heard the movement outside, and the violent shaking caused by the sudden stop of the vehicle also made their bodies sway. "It's over. We're all finished." Caliban, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke, his eyes full of despair. He knew what would happen if he was caught by the Akali Transgenic Institute. Those damn white coat personnel would dissect them, and no one would survive inside the institute. Chen Tian acted extremely calmly, leaning leisurely on the chair as if the person who was arrested was not him. "Your Wolverine friends will be with you soon." Donald glanced at the rearview mirror, his gaze fell on Chen Tian, anger flashed under his eyes, and he sneered. After that, he pushed the car door and walked straight towards the black Chrysler, standing next to the car and slowly running his fingers across the window. And his knuckles tapped on the backseat window. "Knock knock, Charles Xavier, the octogenarian that the national government most wants to capture." Donald looked at Charles in the backseat with a smile, and his slightly deep voice had a native Texas accent and sounded threatening. Logan in the main driver's seat pushed the door down in the dark and asked him sharply, "Where is Caliban? I advise you to calm down." Donald paced in front of the car and walked half a circle to Logan. "Why don't you tell me where the girl is first, or I'll ask the old man." Quote. Then he pointed to Charles in the car, chuckled and said, "He looks much friendlier than you." I said, "She's not here." Logan took a deep breath, his chest heaving violently, suppressing the anger in his heart. "Tell me, where is Caliban? I threw him into the dry ditch prepared for me." When Donald heard this, he deflated his mouth and looked unimpressed, and then looked at the escort not far away with playful eyes. "But I have prepared a better one for you." Quote. The voice just fell. Chen Tian was violently pushed out in the escort car, and his limbs were restrained, and he stumbled under his feet and almost fell to the ground. Seeing this, Uncle Wolf's pupils suddenly contracted, and the bruises on his forehead burst, and the next second he jerked forward to the collar of the owner Donald. And the steel claws instantly stretched out from his fists, glaring angrily at the man in front of him with an indifferent face. "Don't hurt him, you will pay for it." However, the special personnel next to him immediately reacted, grabbed Uncle Wolf's arms vigorously, threw them on the car door and held him down deadly. "Ah!" Logan howled angrily and launched a fierce resistance. It's just that Uncle Wolf gradually entered his twilight years, his physical functions declined sharply, and he was out of breath to deal with a few ordinary punks. Not to mention that the enemies he faced were all professionally trained special forces. Moreover, he was seriously injured the night before yesterday, and now he can't use his strength at all. After the special forces punched and kicked, Logan fell to the ground with a painful face. The surrounding special forces armed with guns rushed up and aimed their pitch black and cold muzzles at Uncle Wolf on the ground. Donald looked down condescendingly at the elderly man on the ground, pretending to regret. "Uncle Wolf, my heart is broken when I see your miserable situation." He continued, "And you also killed an innocent young man. I'm afraid he will have to go to jail with you." After speaking, his playful gaze looked at Chen Tian again. Chen Tian's expression was indifferent, and his gaze as cold as frost greeted him, and said indifferently, "I'll dig out your heart later to see if it is broken." The words fell. An icy voice suddenly sounded in his head. "Battle detected, drop reward, superpower, Wolverine." Suddenly, he only felt that his whole body was filled with strength, his thin muscles instantly bulged, and his bones made a slight abnormal noise. Inside the escort box, Caliban looked at Chen Tian outside in disbelief through the small window. He smelled a familiar breath on the yellow-skinned boy. "It's kind of like Wolverines. Obviously not there just now. How did it suddenly have just passed a while?" When in doubt, the next scene shocked him deeply. I saw Chen Tian, who was originally bound by this chain, suddenly roared with both fists, "Get away!" Bang! Then the heavy iron chains cracked, and the chains under the feet were suddenly broken. Before everyone could react, Chen Tian violently pulled off the dagger on the waist of the nearest person and raised his hand to slash towards the man's neck. Phew! The cold blade cut through the skin, and as a bloodline emerged, the scarlet blood column spilled into the air, staining the ground in an instant. Neck, chest, abdomen. Chen Tian was not picky, and regarded all the key points of the human body as the target of his attack. There is only one purpose, that is, to kill people in the shortest possible time. With his ghostly body and Uncle Wolf's super strength when he was young, he soon set off a bloody storm. Between the electric stone fire, several people had fallen to the ground, and their limbs and broken arms and internal organs were scattered on the ground. Dark red blood continued to flow, staining the ground made of sand with dark red. The air is filled with a strong fishy smell, and even the strong sandstorm lingers. Chapter 17. Donald, guys, have something to say. The battle is still going on. The battle is still going on, blood is constantly gushing. The corpses of several guards soon fell next to the escort vehicle, lying on the ground horizontally and vertically, with very hideous faces. They were completely powerless in the face of unexpected situations, and Chen Tian, who had super strength, was simply like a vicious wolf, ferociously cutting off their heads. Reaping one life after another. A headless corpse fell on the ground, and their eyes widened and they were blind. Phew. At this time, Chen Tian withdrew the dagger from a body that was still warm, raised his hand, and shook off the blood beads on the blade. And the injuries that were inevitably caused on his body were also healing rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then he looked at the last guard with a cold gaze. Shit. Damn freaks. The guard's heart trembled, and he quickly picked up the gun and pulled the trigger. Bang bang. The bullet of the shuttle streaked through the air, spinning and shooting towards Chen Tian. Seeing this, a cold light flashed under Chen Tian's eyes, and his feet slammed into it, leaving 2 deep pits in the sandy ground, like a slaughtered evil wolf rushing straight towards the guards. This guy, Chrysler. Professor Charles looked up at Chen Tian, slightly startled, always felt that the posture was very familiar. At this time, next second, Chen Tian withstood the rain of bullets that struck indiscriminately, pierced the neck of the guard, cut off the hard bones, and blood splashed in his throat. A human head with a twisted face fell to the ground. Bang! Chen Tian looked at the corpse that fell to the ground and raised his hand to wipe a handful of blood stains on his face. His clothes had long been soaked with blood, sticking sticky to his skin, making people feel very uncomfortable. However, Chen Tian didn't care, just looked at the corpses and smiled disdainfully. Wolverine's super strength is really far beyond his imagination. He thought that it was just the peak level of human beings, but now he is not inferior to the American team. Even stronger. First,